I found it very challenging being an empath and being psychic, being able to see through people when I was a child, when I didn't really know how to process all the pain, all the suffering, all that I was picking up. Oftentimes it was very overwhelming, and I didn't know how to differentiate what's mine and what's others.
Hi, Erica. Over the years, I've been at many presentations in the spiritual community where people describe having an awakening, a transformation where they suddenly wake up to the spiritual world and they have gifts and they have experiences that they've never had before and they didn't even think were possible. Now, in contrast, you've had your gifts from an early age. What was it like being young Erica?
It was not easy. It was very challenging actually, because I was able to feel what other people were going through. I was able to see what their experiences were like. I was able to take on other people's traumas, not that I wanted to, but I honestly didn't know how else to deal with such intense emotions and traumas. And I would be a sponge, absorb all the pain and sufferings. And then at nighttime, I'd cry myself to sleep, which was somewhat of a healing and releasing process while I would pray for others' healings based on the experiences that I had throughout the day.
Mm. Wow, that sounds so tough. Did you
Yeah,
feel different from the people around you?
very much so. I did. I mean, I don't know anyone else that was going through what I was going through. So I pretty much kept it my secret because I did not want to be this oddball, and nor did I fully understand or know how to articulate what all I was picking up and what I needed help with. So, as far as I knew, I was the only one experiencing that.
Did anybody help you decipher the information and impressions you were receiving?
I pretty much kept it to myself. So, nobody really knew what my experience was like. I just had to try to fit in and be a normal kid, but I never felt like a normal kid, and nor did I have any help and support because I kept it my secret.
Mm. Did people in your life start to realize that you have these gifts?
I would say later on, when I was a teenager, I remember when I was in high school, I would tell people things and things would happen. So I'd make these predictions, but it was just like information that would come through me and I'd pass it along and it would freak them out. For example, there's this one guy that he was my classmate, and I clearly saw his car getting totaled. And it frightened me. I had to tell him, I said, "Please, whatever you do, don't drive your car. Don't drive." He's like, "Can I at least drive it home?" I said, "As long as you drive it home, you're going to be okay. But I see your car being totaled at nighttime. So just don't drive your car this evening." So after I repeated myself several times, I freaked him out enough so that he promised he was not going to drive his car. He did not that evening, but his sister, on the other hand, snuck off with his car without permission. And guess what? His car got totaled. So he came back completely traumatized the next day, wondering what the heck I am. He's like, "Are you a witch? What are you?" I guess that was a commonly used word that people would use. I don't consider myself a witch, but they just didn't know what else to um, title me as. And so I did freak out quite a bit of people. Even last year, I remember I was guided to reach out to one of my friends that I grew up with. I believe we went to like elementary and middle school and possibly high school. And the very first thing she told me is, "You would always freak me out. Every time you tell me something was gonna happen, it would happen. Oh my god, do you still do that? And I'm like, "Well, I don't know if I still do that per se, but I have some spiritual gifts." She's like, "No, that was crazy. I couldn't handle it." So it does freak people out, and sometimes I try to practice discernment and be mindful of who I share what with, just to ensure that they have some understanding and I don't leave them traumatized.
How did you learn to cope with all that information you were receiving? It sounds pretty overwhelming.
It really is overwhelming. To be honest, there was a point where I couldn't handle all the information that was coming through. I finally started to drink alcohol and smoke pot and smoke cigarettes when I was a teenager and tried to blend in and be like the rest of the kids. I remember I even prayed. I said, God, whatever this is, take it away. I don't want it. It's like, I don't want this information about everyone. I don't know what to do with it. It's too much. And he said, fine, stop practicing it. And I did, but instead, I started numbing myself with substances, which unfortunately did not, was not the solution to my challenges. And that just added more to my problems.
So this information you're receiving, it's about the future sometimes, and it's also about the past, like past lives of people. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, absolutely. When I was a child, I didn't really understand what those visions were and why certain people felt so familiar to me, why certain places were so familiar as if I've lived there before. And I'd get these visions, but I couldn't really connect dots. I didn't have this higher understanding. I wasn't fully developed. So then growing up as I got into meditation and as a teenager, and also in my 20s I began to really get deeply into meditation and soul traveling, and then I began to have a higher understanding of, wow, what these visions are, what they truly mean, why they're coming through. There's always a purpose. And usually pertaining to whatever that's going on in my life or in other people's lives is when I get visions of past lives that come through, like naturally. I mean, it's almost like I have no control over all that comes through, but I'm constantly jumping lives throughout the day, night, 24/7 for myself, for others. It doesn't matter whether or not I'm doing a session with someone or not. It's just a natural thing that I do. So much happens to us on an unconscious level where we feel either someone or some place being very familiar, and instantly our moods can change, or certain people that we might be around, all of a sudden we go from a good mood to bad mood, or we may feel very fearful for no good reason. We don't always understand that sometimes we're actually jumping lives. And even me, I have to sometimes catch myself like, okay, where is this fear coming from? Oh my gosh, why do I have these knots in my stomach? Why does my heart hurt so much? Oh, great. Okay. It's because I just talked to this person and now I'm in a past life with them and I really have to clear this. And this pertains to this pattern that I really need to change in order to live a more healthier, empowering life. So, through these jumping past lives, whether or not we're consciously aware of it or not, it really gives us great opportunities for healing and growth. And you would be surprised, Katie, how often anybody does it on a regular basis. You don't have to have my gifts to be able to do that. And sometimes when some people come in to my office, they don't even look the same. They don't even look like the same person to me as they're sitting there talking. For example, a lady can be sitting there talking, and I'm like, who's this man speaking to me? Who are they right now? And why are they looking at me differently? And then the next thing I know, once they're done talking and we get to the downloads part of the session, I then realize, oh, by the way, you're in a past life right now, and this is what's going on. And then it starts to make sense to me and to them in terms of what they were feeling and why they felt different and what the healing opportunity is. And so as a result, then during the healing process, we're able to work through the past lives they came through that they were connected to without even being consciously aware of. So it's really fascinating in terms of how things come up, how past lives come up based on what our souls are ready for and need to heal at this stage in our life.
Was your mediumship present from an early age as well?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I remember when I was a teenager, I had a boyfriend and he died. And I went to his funeral. While I was at his funeral, he was communicating with me the whole time. He was talking to me as if he's right in front of me, like we're looking at each other right now, just clear as day. And I was sitting there bawling, crying. And I'm sure people were looking at me like, oh, wow, she must really miss this guy. But in reality, what was happening was all the messages that was coming through and how real he was, that was very overwhelming and touching. And it was also an important part of the grieving process for me to fully feel his presence, to get all the messages that I needed to before I was able to move on peacefully.
How do you navigate life being so intuitive and sensitive and empathic?
That's a good question. I typically ask the message, I mean, ask what the message is, ask what the lesson is, ask why this is coming through and what it's related to, and what work needs to be done. And sometimes, if I don't have time to deal with it, I put things on the shelf and they will keep coming back to me, keep coming back until I finally find the time and have the energy and focus to be able to deal with whatever that past life was that I need to take care of.
How did this lead to your work as an energy healer?
The way that it helps me in my work is everything happens for a reason. And when I get insights about past lives, that's really divine showing me where the root of either my challenges or other people's challenges begun. When we're only focusing on this life alone, we're really missing pieces to the puzzle. For instance, I cannot tell you the amount of people that have come to me that have told me that they've been through years of, traditional therapy and they still have the same old patterns and challenges that they can't break free of. Well, it's because they're only going as far as their conscious mind remembers. So this work, it goes beyond people's conscious minds. I help through divine guidance get by getting downloads, get messages from past lives in terms of what all happened, who all it pertains to, what patterns it begun, what their belief system is as a result of it, what life lessons they need to learn, what karma and trauma they need to clear and heal in order to move forward more peacefully without the old limiting ways of being.
What mindset do people bring to a session that helps them benefit the most?
I feel that the more open and honest somebody is, coming into a session with an open mind, open heart, and really helping me understand who they are so that once I know what their challenges are and they trust me, trust is really important, and have the courage to be able to move through the healing process, to be able to go in the dark areas that they've been too afraid to look into, and and trust that I will help them move through healing process through divine guidance. So their level of honesty, openness, and trust is huge and really dependent on how much they're going to get out of a healing session.
Did you ever encounter a client who was so closed off that you just couldn't help them?
I have. It doesn't happen often, but it has happened a few times. I don't understand why somebody would come to me if they don't want to be open, but sometimes it does make sense because of the traumas that they've had in their life. So they may have trust issues. Therefore, I just take it one step at a time. I meet people where they're at. I don't believe in walking ahead of them or pulling them along. I believe in walking side by side, going at their comfort level, and gradually doing the work with those types that are closed. And I do let them know that I do feel resistance. I don't believe in breaking through walls. I believe in respecting boundaries and going at their pace. So typically, when I communicate this and they understand my work better, they do gradually start to open up more. And so the more sessions they have, the more profound changes and shifts they begin to experience in their life. It's just done at a slower pace when somebody is closed. And sometimes if they're completely closed, if all they want is, for example, energy work, I totally respect that. And I've done that before where they've told me that they felt a shift, they felt lighter, they felt happier, they felt more peaceful, which is great. We just don't really get to the root and do any root work to experience the big, profound shifts that our soul may be desiring.
Intuitive healers often see or sense spiritual guides, spiritual figures, loved ones participating in a healing process. Do you sense them when you work with people?
All the time. Um, Definitely, for sure. One of the things that's very common is deceased loved ones come through, and it's not always deceased loved ones. Sometimes the souls of people that are alive may come through. That may be an important component to the healing process. So I really communicate with higher selves. So in that reality, it doesn't matter if somebody is dead or alive. But when we do this work, we have support also from our guides, our spirit guides, whoever their guides may be, and me, divine, and you know, um, it could be anybody. It could be Jesus. It could be Archangel Michael. It could be Raphael. It could be Gabriel. It could be anybody, any of the ascended masters. But the important factor is that having all the support that we need in order for the client to have the breakthroughs and all the information that they need in a protected and safe way.
Being so empathic, what do you do to clear your energy and keep yourself from taking on the energy of others?
That's an excellent question. So I have to clear my energy throughout the day. It's an ongoing thing. I use Palo Santo to clear myself and my environment regularly, sometimes again, multiple times a day, along with taking sea salt baths or showers where I cleanse because salt, it absorbs energy. So it helps clear all of that energy that got accumulated from the work that I did or from the environment, from others, and also from my own work. So sea salt is excellent, as well as crystals. I carry crystals on me all the time religiously, as well as use them to clear my energy. Like I use selenite. I have like selenite wands where I swipe myself with and just kind of clear myself and shake off the energies, as well as spending time in nature, maybe putting my feet in the river. That could be very cleansing, standing on roots of a tree, walking on grass for grounding. And it's got a very it's like a purification process when you spend time in nature and just allow, you know, um, all the natural energy and resources that we have to help support the cleansing and the healing process.
What do you do to prepare for an actual session?
I bring my attention to my third eye always. And I just, as I'm bringing my attention to my third eye, I'm also thinking about the person that I will be doing a session for. And I begin to pray for divine to work through me as I help my clients um, understand, get the messages that their souls need, have a higher understanding and perspective of the bigger picture, connect all the dots, and to be able to move forward more peacefully based on whatever their desires are. So as I tune in to my upcoming session and I begin to pray and focus at my third eye, I oftentimes get feelings, sometimes images, sometimes spirit guides come through, sometimes deceased loved ones connected to them come through. Sometimes I'll have a pretty good idea in terms of what their blockages are and what they may need help with. So I feel like I go into a session prepared by taking a few minutes to really tune in and um and then just allow guidance to take over when I do start the session.
Do you ever encounter a client who either doesn't believe in past lives or they make some objection like they believe all lives happen at once? Do you encounter people who have those perspectives?
Yeah, I do. And as far as like people, like sometimes I'll get calls from people that don't believe in past lives. And if, for example, if it's against their religion, if they feel like this is our only existence here and now, and they're going to go to hell if we talk about past lives, there is no such a thing, then I pretty much tell people that it's not really for them, that this vehicle is not the right fit for them. But yeah, so sometimes I do run into people that don't believe in that.
One thing I've noticed in working with you is that, our issues seem to take time to work through the different layers of them. There's many interconnected pieces in our lives, and there's an unfolding that takes place, and it really just never seems to end. And in working with you, I've seen the need to go step by step as we unlock one layer after the other and explore it. Sometimes that's because that's all we can handle at any given time, and we need to absorb and let things sink in before a new stage opens, and that just takes time and different events, and we really have no knowledge of what's ahead. We have a little bit of background preparation, that's all. We're sort of blocked from full knowing, as we all know is the truth. So I wanna mention that in working with you, it's not necessarily going to be an instant fix. There's always the possibility of something being instantly fixed, but sometimes the work just opens up a new process and a new interconnection, maybe a new relationship, a new challenge, a new circumstance, and then our energy has to adjust for us to move forward. So what do you think about that?
It definitely is an unlayering process for sure. Indeed. And like you said, sometimes people do experience healing right off the bat. That's very common, but it doesn't mean that that's all they have to work on. Sometimes people come to me and they're not even aware of all the other components that are connected to their challenges. They're just going based on what they consciously know. So as we work through the layers upon layers, sometimes we can work through several layers in just one session, which is very common. And once somebody has the opportunity to have experiences that will allow them um, to be able to see the shifts, to be able to live their lives in a different and healthier way, then the next thing you know, other things become apparent to them, like, oh shoot, now this is really in my face. This is not going away. This is really relevant to my healing. So it is a step-by-step process, and people have to be very realistic and patient with the process and go at their comfortable pace, because I can't really decide that for them either. I mean, there are some people that say, "Oh, you have to come in every week and you got to buy this package and you got to." I'm not like that. It's really about what my client feels is the best option for them and how often. And typically for those who are really serious about doing the work, and really moving through an evolving process as quickly as possible, they oftentimes have sessions more regularly at the beginning. And then as time goes by, before long, they begin to do less and less and less sessions. So, like, for example, sometimes somebody may start with once a week, and then the next thing you know, they're once every 2 weeks, once a month, or whenever they need a session. So, it's something that is also important to stay on top of the things that do come up, so that we work through it and not let things pile up to the point of, oh my God, look at this enormous mountain full of things that I need to work on. Where do we start? So it's like, it can be challenging, and a lot of dense energy does get accumulated to the point where the person feels like they're just buried with stuff. Not wait that long, but just take things as they come along is the best way to proceed forward.
Exactly, because what I've experienced going through my own spiritual journey is that our personal vibrations and what's important to us and the challenges we're having are always in flux. In fact, I listened to a recording from last year with me and you working through an issue, and it sounded like another world, so different than where I'm at today. The priorities were different. I had different things on my mind, different concerns, different emotions about what we were exploring and working through. So life is very dynamic with a lot of moving parts. And when we start making those spiritual connections, existence, living day to day can become this expansive, it's very engaging, it's very interesting, fascinating journey that we're on. And I know that some of the clients that we discussed while I was working with you to write your book, Bridging Realms, the process of doing sessions with you opened them up to their own intuition and their own spirituality, and they started to have more spiritual connections. And I can affirm that in our sessions, I felt some very strong energies during the session and afterwards. And I've been able to share information back and forth with you and participate in the work we were doing. Not as vividly and not with the same insights and visuals that you see, but I can definitely sense aspects of what we're doing. I can affirm that there's a lot that goes on. And when you start to work with these spiritual energies and become sensitive to them, life can become just really fascinating because your awareness increases and your whole world expands in every direction. There just seems to be always more and more where that came from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is so true. And one thing that I would like to mention is that I feel like things are happening in a very accelerated way right now. For instance, when I first started my practice back in 2018, I would work on one session. I would regress somebody. I mean, I'm sorry, one past life. I would regress somebody and we just go through one lifetime based on some of the challenges that they were having. Well, before long, I found that our guidance would take over And I would get downloads of multiple lifetimes. And the next thing you know, it's like, whoa, and now this lifetime's coming through and that lifetime's coming through. So that gradually started to increase and increase and increase. And now it's gotten to the point where it's extremely common to work through several lifetimes, whether it's lifetimes on Earth or in other dimensions, and work on multiple people that the client is connected to through them, as well as do like group soul retrievals. And as a process of doing the group soul retrievals, really change the belief system of the whole group. So now it's gotten to the point where I'm like, oh my goodness, how many people did we do work for today? And how many lifetimes did we work through? Not only that, but when guidance takes over and they show me like this life and this person and that group and that life, next thing you know, like all these lifetimes and traumas and karma and people start getting worked on simultaneously. So while this is in progress, then they show me the next thing that healing starts. Then they show me the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. Next thing you know, I'm like, oh my God, there's like a dozen things going on at one time. It didn't used to be that way. It wasn't even that way 2, 3 years ago. So part of it is really the capacity that I have now because of exercising those muscles day after day, year after year, and also all the energy that we have access to and how things have really accelerated multidimensionally, which is very profound. So as a result, people have been experiencing positive shifts much more rapidly than it used to be years ago.
Go back to our discussion about past lives and possibly lives happening all at once. It's possible based on different perspective I've studied and contemplating my own spiritual journey. Yes, it might be happening all at once. The metaphysical world is very hard for the human mind to grasp. It's not linear. It's in fact very brilliant. It's like infinitely intelligent. And we just know the tip of the iceberg of what's really happening. So when we work with past lives or multidimensional existences, no matter when or where or how, there's the ability to connect to them in order to affect where we at in the now. That's why doing the work with you around a past life can change our present. That's why accessing information through time and space can affect us right now. We live in a very fluid existence, a very intelligent and wonderful multiverse. There's such creativity in spirit and source and what's going on and the lessons that we're learning and why we're in the situations we're in, why we signed up for these challenges. There is a higher plan for what we're going through. And in working with our spiritual path and going into these different layers is one way to reach a higher level of awareness, a higher consciousness about why things are the way they are. We can incorporate other aspects of our soul, of our nature, and move to a better place to fulfill our soul purpose.
What you said, it was beautifully said. This type of work goes beyond the intellect. And that's something that, we there's no way that we can consciously understand and grasp everything on a conscious level. And that's where letting go, letting God do their job as we do ours is what's important. And just notice how you feel as you move through the process. That's really important. And I just wanted to mention that because also what's been happening is while there's so much healing that's happening simultaneously when I do a session, I'm noticing that there's so much happening behind the scenes beyond what I can see. I can see a lot, but not everything that's going on multidimensionally. So for me, it's just really kind of feeling it and then getting the messages and delivering the messages and then getting glimpses and and being able to communicate with the clients as to what's coming through and what's happening or what I'm feeling. And I just notice kind of the shifts in my entire being as the healing is happening. And once we're done, then guidance tells me we're done. If I were to try to figure that out intellectually, forget it. That would just be nothing but an interference. So the more that we can just stay in touch with how we feel, the more ahead you're going to be in the long run.